So we couldn't very well come to Dorset without visiting Cerne Abbas to see the famous Cerne Abbas giant, possibly the most famous chalk figure in the world, and for good reason. Forget your white horses. Here is the chalk figure of a man with his enormous stick. I said enormous stick, although he has also got a massive So we are going to try and walk up Giant Hill, see how up close and personal we can actually get with the Cerne Abbas giant. 10 minutes walk uphill, it says, although it might be more like 15 for us. I don't intend to exert myself too much.
Yeah, well, what you plan and what takes place ain't ever exactly been similar.
The path goes that way, but I think we get another view from here. So let's have a look. Well, the trees are almost providing modesty, but not quite. Giant hill this way. Well, yes, it is a giant hill. Seems like all we've done this week is climb hills. But you know, something kill you. Something make you stronger. So we got to stay outside the fence. I think you used to be able to walk all over this. I think I've seen photos and footage of people walking all over it, and of course posing on the most notable part of the chalk figure. Nowadays, I'm afraid you can't get anywhere near it. That's probably a good thing. I mean, it is a historical relic. So yeah, we can't actually see very much of the giant from here, except that dark ridge of green there, and that other dark ridge of green there is the soles of his feet. I think we can go up the side here. We might get a slightly better view of some of him, but probably not a better view than we get from wherever the car is, down there somewhere. Okay. Well, there is the car down there. There's Jenny. Here's the Cerne Abbas giant. So you can just about see his feet there. The bottom of his club or cudgel over there. The little 3 lines you can see there is his ribs. Okay. Right, now I've got to see how I get down here without breaking my neck. What a view. This is the little cabin that we're staying in for just a week. Oh, Eva. Eva's already in there. Hello, little noodle. I've just been around the field again, that's all. Hello. Yeah, I went somewhere without you. Welcome to Atomic Shrimp Temporary HQ kitchen. It's we're staying in a little cabin just for a week's break. We haven't had a break since several years, in fact. So we've just taken a little break in Dorset. Over there to the west, that's Gillingham, not to be confused with Gillingham in Kent. This is Gillingham in Dorset. Fantastic view across the fields and countryside here. Just lovely. And in the evening the sun sets just over that hill and we have a fantastic view of the entire sky lit up in amazing colours. That's the church bells up in Shaftesbury, you can probably hear. The cabin has its own small but very eclectic library, which I'm really enjoying. I kind of wish I owned all of these books, but let's just have a look. So we've got, for example, Photographing Places, or Ferrets, Grow Your Own Vegetables, The Black Powder Handbook, Erotic Antiques, English Historic Carpentry, Whales of the World. And so it goes on. There's a book entirely about Bakelite. There's a book on almost every topic you kind of wouldn't expect. And I love it. I'm going on a bit probably about the view from this little cabin where we're staying, the temporary Atomic Shrimp HQ. But every time I look out here, I see something different. Every time I look out here, the weather conditions paint a different picture of this landscape, and it's just beautiful. It's just amazing to sit here and watch the sun and shade of the clouds and the sunset and all the different weather conditions just playing across this landscape. And even if it was raining, we've got the covered area where we can sit and enjoy a cup of tea. I mean, we haven't had any rain yet, but maybe we'll get some rain later in the week. I think the forecast is for a bit of rain, but we can sit here in this covered bit and enjoy the view through the trees from there. It's just magical. As I say, the view here is different every morning. Oh, there goes a squirrel. Oh, shame Eva wasn't here to see that. So this morning, well, it rained overnight, and so this morning the entire valley is blanketed in cloud and mist. I can scarcely see past the second row of trees down there. But the sun will shortly come up and burn that away. So I'll get some pictures of that, because no doubt the mist will linger in the lower lying spots a bit longer than it does higher up. And that's quite picturesque in its own right. Well, just 10 minutes later and we can see a little bit more. I think a time lapse might be in order. It's time for the comment positivity section, where I'm just going to pick out half a dozen recent-ish comments that maybe asked insightful questions, or were just uplifting in some way, or otherwise interesting or deserve an answer. So, reading glasses on. And let's have a look. So, this is on the bramble basket that I made a couple of years ago. I agree, picking berries into a basket woven from the same plant is a lovely and satisfying notion. Thanks for the inspiration. I'm excited to do the same. Well, I'm always glad to hear that things that I did encourage other people to do things that they want to do. That's really good. I really like that. And there is definitely something about the whole convergence of making a bramble basket and then picking blackberries into that bramble basket, so the two things came from the same plant, and the project kind of converges in a really satisfying way. Thank you. I hope your basket turns out really well. Even if it doesn't, it's a fun thing to do. Oh, they also said, sending you appreciation for the Withnell and I reference from across the pond. I had to think for a while about what that actually meant. Obviously, I am a fan of the film Withnell and I, but I didn't know what I'd actually said in that video that might have been a quote. And of course, it's the gloves. Never attempt anything without the gloves. That has kind of become part of my vernacular. I don't even realise I'm quoting the film anymore when I say that. Anyway, moving on. This was on a foraging video. I do wonder how one gets from the point of I think that's such and such to the point of I know exactly what it is and I'm going to eat it. That's a really good question, actually. And especially with mushrooms, because mushrooms do give people the fear, because death by poisonous mushrooms is a pretty nasty thing. There are, of course, lots of poisonous green plants and berries and things out there that will also kill you in nasty ways. And of course, care is required in that context too. As to how you get from the point of, oh, I think I know what that is, to I definitely know what that is, I'm going to eat it, it's just a matter of time and practice and familiarity and repeated observation. And so it took me actually quite a few years of just going out and looking at mushrooms, going out and looking at plants, identifying things, before I got to the point where I was confident enough to say, yeah, I definitely know what that is, and I want to eat it. Obviously I wanted to pick and eat wild mushrooms for a long time before I actually did pick and eat wild mushrooms. It is just time and practice and repeated observation. And it's like anything else. It's like, you sometimes get people who can look at a car and they can tell you the exact make and model and year and paint colour and any modifications that have been done to it, because they've studied that kind of domain and become so familiar with it that at a glance they can tell what something exactly is. Now, at a glance is not necessarily how you do it with mushrooms, because there are some tiny details that you need to do more than just glance at. But it's the same principle. Once you've studied and looked at a thing for long enough and become familiar with it and repeatedly observed it, you get to a point where it kind of is built into your knowledge base, and you can just look at things and say, yeah, I either don't know what that is or I know exactly what that is. Those identification skills apply to all sorts of things. I've said in the past, Pokemon, cars, whatever. It's all the same skill, it's different domains. And so with fungi, it's the same thing. Get out there, study them, get a good book, go with somebody who already knows is good, and just keep on looking at things and keep on matching them against descriptions. And you will eventually get to the point where there's this kind of breakthrough where you say, yeah, actually, it's obvious that's what that is. And it's not just about knowing what it is, it's knowing that you know you're sure. This was on the Arthur Bargain short story. Is this an allegory for your comment section, perchance? A lot of people thought that, actually. And okay, so one of the objectives I set myself when I went on this little short trip with Jenny and Eva to Dorset was to do a piece of writing. So obviously we knew we were going to be out walking and looking at countryside and beaches and things like that. But I also wanted to take the time to do a short piece of writing and just see if I could write a story. I didn't know what it was going to be when I set out, but I stumbled across this shop, and it's a real shop that's in Shaftesbury, and although a slight little flutter of pedantry did make me want to go in and ask them why there's a missing apostrophe on their sign, I realised that actually that's not really what they would probably want me to do. And looking at the store, I kind of thought, okay, well, a couple of things I could do here. I could take a picture of this and post it to Facebook and say, haha, apostrophe, whatever. Or I could try to imagine what happened, or what might have happened, to have caused that predicament, to have caused that situation. And that's what happened. So I wrote the story. Now, of course, when you write stories, very often you're writing from your own experience. So in terms of it being an allegory for my comment section, obliquely, because obviously I've been in that situation where I've been under a lot of pressure from lots of people nitpicking, and it isn't good for your mental health to be in that place where you're under pressure from lots of people pointlessly nitpicking. So yeah, it draws on my experience. It's not a coded message to people to try and tell them not to be pedants, because that's not going to happen. People are never going to stop doing that, and I'm past that point where I really care very much about people pointlessly nitpicking things anymore. Sometimes it still comes back and gets to me, but whatever. So yeah, it is an allegory for my comments section. It's an allegory for the internet in general, I think, probably, in that all of these people who went and visited Mr. Arthur Bargain thought they were doing a service. In fact, they were just part of a problem. Anyway, this is on a video about impersonation scammers. Hopefully the handles implementation coming up might help. Guess we'll wait and see if it has any impact at all, or the scammer will just find a way around it like they always do. So yeah, YouTube is implementing something called handles, which I think is going to make it easier to identify who it is you're talking to in the comments. So in theory, that might have an impact on these scammers who impersonate YouTubers. I've had one of them myself. There's a video about that. It might not. I don't know. These scammers always seem to find a creative, or sometimes quite stupid and absurd, way around the restrictions. We will see. And on the subject of handles, the Wobble Dog video. I'm using Wobble Dog as my internet handle from now on. Well, good luck to you. Oh boy. Right, on one of my budget videos, the statement in the introduction is the star of the video. This is something I do in order to provoke myself to be creative. Yeah, a lot of people don't get the budget videos. It's only ever been about setting myself a challenge, trying to give myself something that's difficult enough to make me think, but not so difficult that it's impossible and just makes me give up. So doing that kind of challenge, and I do it quite a lot in other contexts as well, I set myself a difficult way to do something, sometimes through pure incompetence. I find it a useful way to embed a kind of habit of not giving up. A habit of, when you face a problem or a failure or whatever, of just saying, okay, well, yes, that failed, but now what? What are we going to do next? Rather than, oh, here's a problem, we're stuck. I mean, it's not my place. It's not my place to prescribe that behaviour for other people. All I can tell you is that doing that kind of challenge repeatedly has instilled in me a kind of habit of not giving up, a habit of turning a problem into an opportunity. That might sound a bit glib, because not all problems are the same size and not all problems are the same severity. But I do know that when you're facing a problem, giving up is the sure way to fail. So trying again, trying harder, trying something else is sometimes a way to prevail. I don't want to make that too glib, because, like I say, not all problems are the same. But I do think it's a healthy attitude to have, to look at what next. What do we do instead if you're faced with a problem? I probably should say the budget videos are not about telling poor people how much money they should spend on food. It's not my place or my intention to tell people how to run their lives. It's, in fact, the whole of my channel, I don't think you should really think of my channel as me teaching you things. I'd rather you thought of it as you watching me learn things. Because very often in my videos, you're watching me learn, you're watching me fail, and then try again. And I just kind of enjoy that, working in that mode. And I find it very productive and useful for everything I do. And on the subject of failures, this was on the wonky, weird keyboard thing that I made, the project where I tried to make a miniature keyboard out of a keyboard, and it just did not go well. And I struggled, and eventually I did draw a line under it, because I concluded that what I was doing was not going to work. Now, I will revisit that. I haven't given up, but I have put that to one side so I can deal with other things. But the comment says anyway, well done on the video. Far too many "here's one I did earlier" types. Quite rare to see one where the mistakes and pitfalls are honestly and genuinely pointed out, where people show how they got it wrong. Learn by your mistakes, or even better, learn from someone else who's made the mistakes and is honest and genuine enough to show you how not to do it. Yeah. More and more I'm finding, actually, I prefer to show you where I fouled up. I'd prefer to show you that I tried this and it didn't work. Because trying to pretend that you're perfect and you got it right the first time, it's a lot of effort. And why would I do that? Why would I want to do that when it's actually not just easier, but healthier, I think, to just be what I am, to just show you, here's what happened, here's what happened, it didn't go all that well. So, I don't know, I can see absolutely why experts in their field might want to practice a thing and practice it until they can show you them doing that with great competence. There's nothing wrong with that for experts in their field. I'm not an expert in any field, so there's very little point in me trying to pretend that I'm very good at doing the thing I'm showing you, because in all probability the thing I'm doing in front of you might be something I've only just started doing. That's the nature of my channel. The nature of me is I like trying different things. I like to do different things and discover things and try out something different. So the chances are, if you see me doing something, I'm not competent at it. I'm certainly not more competent than other people you might have seen doing it. And in any case, I'm not really interested in becoming the most competent person in doing a thing. All I really set as a target and goal for myself is to try to become more competent about that thing than I was myself the day before. So I'd rather compare myself to my past self than compare myself to other people who are obviously better at doing a thing than I could ever be. So yeah, do expect to see more mistakes and foul-ups on this channel, because I will carry on doing different things and I will carry on making mistakes, because mistakes are a great way to learn. And me showing my mistakes, I suppose, is a great way for other people to learn from my mistakes. So like I say, rather than me teaching, you're kind of watching me learn. So, out looking for mushrooms, and I've often said in the past that I don't pick russulas because I'm not all that confident in identifying them. But I am pretty certain, and I will obviously confirm when we get back home, that this one here is called the charcoal burner, which is an edible russula. So I think today might be the day that I pick some russulas and identify them with the books when I get home and give them a taste. Russulas are a white-gilled mushroom, and they're often known as brittle gills because they're actually very crumbly in texture. And apparently they don't lose that crumbliness when they're cooked, so it's quite an interesting change from your usual mushroom texture. And in there we've got Paxillus involutus, the brown roll rim, poisonous. Don't eat this. But there are a lot of russulas around here, so we're going to pick some russulas today and give them a try. These I suppose I could pick, but they're a little bit nibbled and dirty and aged. I can see more russulas here, different species by the look of it. More brown roll rims over there. More stuff over here. Again, a russula. So this one here is called the green russula, and again, an edible russula, and very highly prized, I understand, this one, so we're going to pick these as well. Or at least I'll pick a couple of them anyway. Juvenile Amanita muscaria here. Fly agaric. Did you say you saw three? I can only see two.
There's one.
Oh yeah, there's another one in there.
Yeah.
Yep. Now for me that's an indicator species, because whenever I find fly agarics, I very often find Boletus edulis, the sep or penny bun, close by. So I'm going to have a wander through here and see what we can find. I can see something there that isn't a sep. That's another brown roll rim. We're not going to be taking that, as indeed are those, and that one down there. Lots of brown roll rims in this woodland. I can see some more over there. I don't actually see any seps. I guess sometimes my rule of proximity either doesn't hold true, or perhaps I'm just not seeing them. There's another Amanita muscaria just popping out through the leaf litter down there. I'm just going to have a look over here. Yeah, I mean it could be underneath this bracken. There may be seps here hiding away underneath the bracken. I'm not going to go wading through bracken because that definitely is tick territory. This here I'm about 90% certain is something called tawny grisette. It's an Amanita that's edible. So there's one there, there's another one there, There's a larger one over there. There's a very nice looking little specimen in there. I don't know if you can see that. I'm pretty sure, like 90%, that is tawny grisette. And it's edible, and but it's an amanita. And I don't pick and eat amanitas, just really as a kind of matter of principle. Really weird. Amanitas give me the heebie-jeebies basically, so I avoid the entire genus. There we go, there's our penny bun, as predicted, in relatively close proximity to the Amanita muscaria. Some rather old looking, probably blushers, maybe panther caps there. I think that could be a panther cap actually, not sure. No, it's too big. That's a blusher in there, but again, edible amanitas technically, but give me the heebie-jeebies, so I ain't eating them. Oh, there's a rather nicer looking specimen. There we go. Almost certainly the blusher, which is edible, but not by me today. And that one there looks like maybe another bolete, but don't know which one. Right, I can't go any further. This is a bit too much of a thicket, so we'll turn around and look for some other places.
One there.
Oh my gosh, yes.
One over there.
Now look at that. That is the biggest sep I think I've seen recently that's not completely mangled. Look at that. Hand for scale. That's almost, well, it's about, get out of the way. That's bigger than a tea plate. That's about, what is that, 20 centimeters across? 22 maybe. And it looks to be in good condition. That will dry very well. Bit too mature for any other kind of cooking. There's another one there, another one there. Jenny's got a little one in there. There's one behind me, another one there. Oh, huge one over there, but way past harvesting stage. So I think we'll pick a few of these. Oh, there's another big one over there. Wow, look at the size of that thing. So, decisions about picking. This big one here, I'm going to have a look at the pores underneath to see what the condition is like. So I'll dip my selfie camera and I'll have a look underneath before I decide whether to pick it or not. Because if it's not in great condition, I think it's probably better left. So join me in wrestling my conscience here with these mushrooms. So obviously that one there, huge, too far gone, not worth picking. That one should be left and allowed to drop some more spores and reproduce. This one here, beautiful, but a little bit on the small side really for picking. And I've picked some lovely ones, really dark caps. And you can see why they're called penny buns, can't you? They really do look like a bread roll on top. This is the one that's troubling my conscience because it's a beautiful specimen. It's really nice condition. It's a bit larger than I would ever normally pick, but it does appear to be sound enough to pick. But I've got a basket full already. So I think my decision is leave this one because it's just such a beautiful, such a beautiful specimen. I think it's got to be left to continue developing. There's a chance that we would pick this, even though it does pass my test of sounding like a rubber ball. I think there's a chance we would pick this and find it's got maggots in it, or that it's a bit too soft to do anything with. So I am going to leave that one. So am I making the right call here, walking away from that beautiful big sep and its tiny baby brother? Let me know in the comments what you would have done. So we've got some more russulas here, and I can't identify that one. But I do like russulas. They are such a colourful family of mushrooms. I just like them to look at. They have a very good dress sense. Another one right there and there. They're always in shades of kind of autumn, typical autumn colours. I mean, they are autumn fungi. That's a dryad saddle there. A rather small one for the time of year. That's interesting, but it's not. I'm not going to pick that today. But yeah, russulas, I mean, it is autumn, but they are, and perhaps this is where we get the idea of autumn colours from. But beautiful mushrooms, always very well dressed. No idea what species that is. So not a bad little haul. We've got one green russula, we've got one charcoal burner, and a bunch of seps. I'm going to have that sep fried on top of some cheesy mushroom toast this evening. We've actually got some mushrooms in the fridge we need to use up. So I'm going to have that and the russulas, I think, on top of cheesy mushroom toast. The rest of them I'm going to put in the dehydrator overnight and make some more dried mushrooms. You've seen that before, so I won't show that bit. So these two russulas, I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you. I'm not going to eat either of these. I am reasonably confident we're looking at Russula aeruginea, I think it's called, the grass green russula here, but I'm not confident enough. And again, pretty sure that's the charcoal burner, but not confident enough. Now I know with all of the UK russulas, you can just do a taste test. You can just nibble a little bit, and if it doesn't taste kind of hot or acrid or unpleasant or peppery, then it's supposedly edible. That is a rule of thumb that works with russulas apparently in the UK, and not with other species of mushrooms. Anyway, I'm not eating these because I'm not 100% confident, and that is my guiding principle with mushrooms, is I don't eat anything unless I'm really sure what it is. So there's us off picking wild mushrooms when we have mushrooms back at home. These are the mushrooms we have back at home. Anyway, I'm going to make a mushrooms on toast type of thing, using mostly this, but with a little bit of flavour from the forest. First though, a little bit of onion. So onions in with a little bit of oil. I appreciate this is kind of weird and random, but I have one beef burger here that was left over from a meal a day or two ago. Been in the fridge. It's left over. It's perfectly okay, obviously. I'm just going to break that up and fry it in together with my mushrooms. Well, the mushrooms are going to go in here eventually, so I'll just break that up into pieces. Just leave that to cook really gently while I prepare the mushrooms. These are the mushrooms from the supermarket, and nothing special here at all. I am literally just going to run the knife through these again and again until they're chopped up fairly small. Not going to try to slice them or anything ceremonious. Just going to keep on repeatedly running the knife through like that until the pieces are about the right size. Those little shreds of beef burger are cooked now. So in with the mushrooms. It's all going to get cooked some more anyway. A few little leaves of thyme from the garden. And then half a baguette. So I am going to have to explain why I'm cutting this in a weird way. This is for two people. I don't want one person to have that side, the other person to have that side. So I'm cutting it down the middle this way. Stick with me, it will make sense. And then I'm going to open that out flat, like that, because we're going to stuff some bits in here. Might just take a few little crumbs of bread out of there actually to make space. Those could always just be stuck in the freezer and then blended up as breadcrumbs if we don't want to waste them. This mix of burger, meat, onions and mushrooms is now cooked down. Most of the moisture has come out of the mushrooms, so they're not going to exude any more liquid. To make this extra mushroomy, it's going to have about a teaspoonful of my porcini powder that I made the other day. And that will help those mushrooms just to taste a little bit kind of wild. The bread, a little drizzle of olive oil, and then brush that on. And a tiny little bit just inside. Now we need to fill those. So I've divided my mushroom mixture in two. So I'm just going to stuff that in there. Like that. Try and make sure it all goes in. It's not easy. In case you're wondering what this recipe is, I'm just making it up as I go along. So I just happen to have some mushrooms and a leftover beef burger in the fridge. So I'm just kind of making up supper time. Not quite pizza, obviously, because, you know, it's not. Although actually the history of pizza, when you look at it, is pretty much put whatever you've got on bread and cook it. So maybe it is, I don't know. Just going to push that in. Let some of the juices of those mushrooms go into the bread. Now I didn't toast the bread because I don't want it to be all crunchy and crispy. I want it to be kind of oozy and juicy and luscious. We'll just set that aside for a moment. And then, by my reckoning, 3 eggs. A tiny squirt of mustard. And then cheddar cheese. Dog's come running because she heard me unwrap the cheese. Right, and I'm just going to grate in as much cheddar cheese as this mixture will take until it stops being runny. So a bit more than that. A little bit more than that. So I reckon we're going to go for about probably 150 grams of cheese. Maybe a little more. Now I'm using mature cheddar. Obviously you could use all sorts of different cheeses there. Gruyere would be very good. That's still a little bit runny, so actually what I think I'm going to do is blend up that bread and just throw some breadcrumbs in there as well. So yeah, waste not, want not. Some of those breadcrumbs that we tore out of the middle of the bread, maybe all of them in fact. Just going to go back in. Yeah, I think that'll take all of them. Just going to go back in to thicken that mixture. And that is about perfect. So it's just spreadable, but it's not going to run or pour off the sides. We've got the bread back here now. Just got to be a little bit careful because it is almost falling apart. Now, the juices of those mushrooms have soaked into the bread, but when this bakes in the oven, that's going to crisp up a little bit, but at the same time, it's not going to be rock hard and crunchy. It's just going to be melty and hopefully delicious. So this cheese and egg mixture goes on top. So this egg mixture is a bit like a rarebit, although opinions vary quite wildly on what represents a proper Welsh rarebit. I'll just spread that out. So we'll try and cover all of the bread, or else it will just, bits that are exposed might just burn. And then the oven is preheating to 190 fan. That's 190 Celsius fan. And I'm just going to throw those in the oven now until they're crispy and bubbly on top. And of course we mustn't forget this little sep, which we're going to use as a kind of a garnish. So I'm just going to cut the middle part out because that would be the best looking. And divide that in half. Okay, I'm just going to gently fry that in butter and we'll use that as a garnish. As I've probably said before, I'm not enormously fond of seps as a cooked mushroom just like this because they do tend to go a little bit mushy, but young ones like this will be firm enough if they're just cooked through in a little bit of butter. Okay, and there's the main course, well, the main event. Just nicely bubbly and crispy, but you can see the egg stops the cheese from running off the edges. And just to make them easier to plate, we'll hack them in half, and that gives us the opportunity to have a look at the cross section. So it's kind of oozy with the mushroom juices. Mushroom juice has soaked into the bread there. The cheese has gone crispy on top. That's good. I mean, nothing fancy, and there's barely a taste of this tiny little sep, but hopefully it is a taste. So that's supper. Let's get that to the table and give it a taste. Right. Well, I'm just going to give this a little taste, actually. I'm just going to taste a bit of this mushroom. Actually, not bad. Have a taste, see what you think, Jenny. Mind the main thing is going to be quite hot, probably. They actually, compared to what they're like when they're dried, they're a really mild tasting mushroom when they're fresh, aren't they? I mean, that's true of most mushrooms, to be honest. Once it's the drying process that makes the flavour. Right, well, here goes. Good. Yeah. So, of course, I put some pepper on because most things need it. The thing I like about this, that little teaspoonful of porcini powder in with the mushrooms in the filling really does make the mushroom filling taste like it's wild mushrooms. Even though it's mostly shop-bought mushrooms, it just gives it a little bit of a wild woodland flavour. Yeah, I'm happy with how that came out. So there we go, kind of impromptu made up mushrooms on toast pizza rarebit. I hope that was interesting. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.